Imagine a world where the lines between hunter and hunted blur, where compassion rises in the heart of danger, and where a human soul finds an unspoken connection with the wild. This is the story of such a moment, witnessed by a young American park ranger in the heart of Africa. A moment that would forever reshape her understanding of courage, trust, and the deep, invisible threads that bind all life together. It began on a morning that seemed like any other for Sarah, a 30-year-old ranger whose life had been shaped by the wilderness. As she set out on patrol, the sanctuary around her pulsed with quiet life, the air rich with the scent of damp earth and blooming acacia, the only sounds of rustle of leaves and distant bird calls echoing through the trees. Sarah, with her sharp eyes and steady instincts, moved with confidence. Years in the bush had forged her spirit, and each day felt less like duty and more like devotion. This was her calling, to guard, to protect, to bear witness. But then, the rhythm of the savannah broke. A disturbance rippled through the stillness. Not the light rustle of antelope hooves, but something heavier, strained, and desperate. Her pulse quickened as she stepped toward the sound. And there, in a shallow, muddy pool framed by tall grass and acacia, her breath caught Kudo, a magnificent silverback gorilla. His enormous frame, usually the embodiment of raw power, was bound, helplessly wrapped in the suffocating coils of an African rock python. The snake was immense, its body winding around him like a living vice, muscles tightening with every breath the gorilla tried to take. It was nature in its harshest form, a raw clash between two giants that Sarah's heart jolted. Fear surged first, then resolve. Her training had never prepared her for this, because how could it? A silverback, unmatched in strength, pinned under the relentless grip of a serpent that knew only suffocation. Rock pythons are patient killers, silent ambushers with camouflage scales and teeth that lock prey inescapably in place. And now, Kudo's breaths were shallow, his great chest rising against an unyielding coil. His time was slipping away. She scanned the scene, every sense alive. This was more than just survival. It was a heartbreak. Kudo, the leader of his family, a gentle force despite his fearsome size, stared back with wide, panicked eyes. Gorillas, so often misunderstood as savage, are in truth beings of deep tenderness, capable of love, of play, of remarkable gentleness. And here he was brought to his knees, vulnerable, fragile. The python, on the other hand, was pure instinct, a predator of brute force and chilling patience, using its coils to cut the flow of life itself. Sarah could see the rippling strength in its muscles as it tightened, each squeeze methodical, merciless. Her training whispered options, tools, tactics, slim chances. She carried only a low-intensity stun device, meant to startle without killing. Maybe, just maybe, it could be enough. But as she steadied herself, drawing a deep breath for courage, the ground itself seemed to rumble beneath her feet. From the tall grass at the edge of the acacia, another presence emerged. A golden mane, then another, and another, a pride of lions. Their tawny coats melted into savannah, their eyes sharp, unblinking, locked in the struggle unfolding in the open field, her stomach clenched. A pride meant certain danger. These were no ordinary witnesses. These were apex hunters, rulers of the land, capable of bringing down anything in their path. She braced herself for chaos, for violence. But then, something unexpected. The lions didn't move. No charge, no stalk, no sudden attack. They stood still, watching, their presence heavy with tension but not aggression. Soft growls drifted between them, not the snarls of battle, but the low hums of something else. Curiosity, calculation, perhaps even respect. It was as though they sensed the gravity of what they were witnessing, a desperate clash between life and death, and chose, in that moment, to remain as silent spectators. Sarah, with every nerve alive, felt it too. The savannah had held its breath in predator or protector. All eyes were drawn to this singular, fragile struggle. Their stance told a story, cautious, curious, but not aggressive. It was an extraordinary moment, as if the pride itself had chosen to pause, holding back instinct in recognition of something greater. The sheer desperation of a gorilla fighting for his life. Lions, creatures driven by hunger and territory, seemed for a fleeting instant to set aside their primal urges. That pause, that shared silence, opened a fragile window for Sarah. But she knew well, one wrong move, one spark of fear, and the stillness could shatter into chaos. With the pride watching, Sarah understood her chance was now. Rescuing a gorilla from a python was no easy feat. It was madness. Yet in the wild, sometimes the truest strength reveals itself not through force, but through acts of compassion. Heart pounding, she edged closer to the struggle, her eyes locked on the python's head, the one vulnerable point. Kudo thrashed weakly, his terror almost radiating into the air. The python's coils gripped so fiercely, it seemed its very scales were cutting into his fur. Sarah knew she had one tool, her low-intensity stun device. A small weapon of disruption, not destruction. With deliberate calm, she drew it from her belt, moving with the silence of a ranger who knew that hesitation meant death. She crept just close enough, still outside striking range, but near enough to change the outcome. One breath, one press of a button. The device sparked as she touched it to the python's head. The serpent convulsed, writhing violently. For a heartbeat, its crushing grip loosened. It hissed, rearing back, eyes flaring, its attention torn from its prey. That single moment was everything. Sarah lunged forward, reckless with courage. She gripped one of the massive coils locked around Kudo's chest and pulled with all the strength her body could summon. The python, realizing its meal was slipping away, tightened again, muscles flexing like steel cables. But this time, Kudo answered. With a faint spark of renewed strength, he twisted, forcing a gap between scale and skin. The battle teetered in the balance, until at last, the python faltered. Disoriented, its coils lost their rhythm, slipping free in a slow, reluctant unravel. And then in a fluid wave, it retreated, slithering back into the tall grass, defeated but alive. Kudo collapsed onto the earth, his chest heaving, his great body trembling with exhaustion. Sarah stepped back, giving him space, though every nerve in her body remained on edge. Slowly, the silverback raised his head. His eyes, deep brown, filled with exhaustion, locked with hers. And in that silence, something passed between them. Not words, not gestures, but an understanding. Relief, trust, gratitude. The lion stirred, as if the moment had released him too. Yet they did not pounce. They did not claim the fallen gorilla. Instead, they lingered, watchful but calm, as though acknowledging that this chapter had closed. It was a rare, haunting moment, human, gorilla, and lion bound together, not by blood or instinct, but by survival and witness. What Sarah had done was more than a rescue. It was proof of what courage and empathy can summon in the face of impossible odds. The savannah had held its breath, and now it exhaled. In the days that followed, Sarah returned to her patrols, her eyes often catching sight of Kudo, alive, strong, leading his family once more. The memory of that day remained etched in her heart. The lion's restraint, their silent choice to observe, stayed with her as well, a reminder that even in the wildest corners of the earth, unpredictability can hold space for something close to neutrality, even reverence. This was never just a tale of a ranger saving a gorilla. It was a glimpse into the extraordinary bonds that exist when courage meets compassion. Sarah's quick thinking, her fearless heart, and her empathy for Kudo revealed the truth of her calling, and the truth of rangers everywhere. They are the quiet guardians, the bridge between humanity and wilderness, standing alone against dangers most will never see, protecting what cannot protect itself. The image of Sarah facing down a python, and a pride of lions, armed not with violence but with courage, lingers like a timeless symbol. It speaks to something profound. That empathy is not ours alone. It runs through the veins of nature itself. The lions, silent in their watch, taught us about restraint. Kudo, brought to the edge of death, showed us vulnerability, strength, and trust. Together, they painted a picture of connection, of the invisible threads weaving every life into the great tapestry of the wild. This story reminds us that every creature matters, that every act of compassion sends ripples to the fragile balance of the world. Sometimes the greatest miracles aren't the loudest. They're the quiet moments of bravery that pass almost unseen. And for Sarah, that day became more than a memory. It became a testament. to the untamed, to the fragile, to the hope that when courage meets kindness, survival becomes possible if the story touched you. Let it remind you of your place in this living world. Subscribe for more stories of courage, compassion, and connection, and share which part of this journey moved you most. Because sometimes the wild doesn't just test us. Sometimes it teaches us